On the news tonight, INEC vows to tackle vote buying in forthcoming election. Nigerians tax CBN on availability of new naira notes. Governor Adeleke assures investors of enabling business environment. Abducted Cameroonian journalist found dead. Good evening and welcome to the major reports. I am Olubomi Ajiboye Agbola. The Independent National Electoral Commission has vowed to tackle vote buying in the forthcoming elections in partnership with the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The commission described votes in exchange for money as a cankerworm that had eaten deep into the country's political system. The INEC president, the INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner in Rivers State, Johnson Sinekem, stated this while addressing journalists, adding that the electoral body has sensitized the youth in various villages in the country to monitor and report anyone involved in vote buying. Mr. Sinekem, who was represented by the head Voter Education and Publicity, Mark Usolo, said in the view of the new Electoral Act that anyone found with another person's permanent voter card risks a jail term. He said that the security agencies, especially the Nigerian Police and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, have been briefed to watch out for people in possession of illegal materials, calling on the media to ensure accurate reportage of INEC activities before, during, and after the general elections to ensure free, fair, credible, and peaceful polls. Meanwhile, the Pan-Yoruba Socio-Political Organization, Afenifere, has warned politicians over the increase in verbal and physical attacks characterizing election campaigns in various parts of Nigeria. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Jare Ajayi, Afenifere urged political parties and their candidates to focus on issues regarding how they would tackle the myriad of challenges that the country is facing, rather than coming up with utterances and actions that border on demarketing of opponents and possibly causing bodily harms on other people. Ajayi submitted that the verbal attacks emanating from some candidates and their spokespersons were encouraging their supporters to violently attack opponents in a manner that could result in bloodshed, expressing serious concern over the escalating violence in spite of various peace accords being signed by presidential candidates and others. The group said a research organization has revealed that 27 Nigerians were killed in 57 politically motivated violent incidents between January and December 2022. There have been some other attacks since then, including the ones that happened in Ogun, Osun, Imo, Ebonyi, Abia, and Enugu states, among others. The statement added that candidates and political parties that have good programs to execute would not resort to verbal or physical attacks. The Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, George Akume, says the federal government has identified 9 areas of priority and formulated a policy to ensure easy implementation. According to the minister, the identified 9 priority areas include building a sustainable economy, enhancing social inclusion, reducing poverty, and enlarging agricultural output for food, among others. Akume, who was represented by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Ibiene Roberts, spoke at the inaugural award ceremony for civil servants in Abuja, added that the federal government in the last 3 years has made a concerted effort to improve the living conditions of the citizens. He explained that the federal government has enlarged agricultural output for food security and exports, attain energy sufficiency in power and petroleum products, and expand transport and other infrastructural developments, expand business growth, entrepreneurship, industrialization, and improved security. Nigerians have urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to make the new Naira notes available in all automated teller machines as well as over the counter in all the states of the Federation, as they have continued to lament the scarcity of the new notes. Those who spoke with OSBC News in separate interviews bemoaned the hardship they are facing in trying to get the new Naira notes few days to the deadline. Oluwatobiloba Odunuga now reports.
With 5 weeks gone into the period of transition from old to new Naira notes and just barely 1 week to the deadline for the acceptance of the old notes as legal tender, the Central Bank of Nigeria and the commercial banks appear to be at loggerheads over the circulation of the new notes. Recall that the Central Bank of Nigeria had earlier announced that the 31st of this month will be the last day that the old Naira notes will be legal tendered. This directive has made many to deposit their old notes to their different bank in order to get the new notes. In a bid to comply with the CBN's directive, most automated teller machines owned by different commercial banks, as observed by OSBC News Crew in Oshogbo, Osun State Capital, shows that the automated teller machines were dispensing the new Naira notes. Speaking with OSBC News in separate interviews on this development, bank users including Mr. Abdulmojid Juma, Mr. Musa Adegun, Ms. Zainab Taufik, and Mr. Adebi Adepowale said the new Naira note is available, but they will struggle to get it, saying one can only punch out 5,000 Naira at a go after waiting for like 2 or 3 hours. They called on the government and the Central Bank of Nigeria to come to their rescue so as to avert the situation of wanting to collect the sum of 40,000 Naira and one can only get it bit by bit.
So if you want to withdraw, you cannot withdraw more than 5,000 Naira for the new notes.
The new note is not much inside the bank. Okay, if I want to collect 50,000 Naira now, I won't. Maybe 20,000 or 30. That's the least I can collect.
Well, they are giving us 40,000 Naira each, but they ask us to withdraw 5,000, which make us to stay long, more than the amount we want to collect. They're supposed to do the process very good for us. That 40,000, take it 2 times and go. Other person will be able to. We are just standing here because of 40,000. People will start for like 3 hours, 4 hours because we want to take ordinary 40,000.
They however called for the extension of the deadline that the old Naira notes will be legal tendered, as they expressed dissatisfaction, noting that some Nigerians have not been able to access the redesigned notes since it was rolled out on the 15th of December last year. Oluwatobiloba Odunuga, OSBC News.
As the scarcity of the premium motor spirits, popularly called petrol, bites harder, oil marketers say the cost of the commodity would cross 800 Naira per litre once subsidy on PMS is removed. Taiwo Alake has the rest of this and more on the business desk.
Osun Trade Fair 2022, organized by the Osun State Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce, Industry, Cooperatives and Empowerment, attracted those in the agri value chain, mining, entrepreneurs, manufacturers, market men and women.
Have repeatedly stated that the high cost of subsidy on petrol is a burden on the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and is contributory to the prolonged crisis in the downstream oil sector, as NNPC is the sole importer of petrol into Nigeria. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, recently suggested that the government should gradually withdraw subsidy on PMS, stressing that the budgetary allocation for subsidy would end in June. The Secretary, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Abuja, Suleja Mohammed Traibu, stated that if the government fails to take the appropriate measures, insisting on the removing fuel subsidy, the situation will be worse. The masses will suffer for decision. Also, oil marketers insisted that while it is advisable to remove subsidy, and Nigeria would know that the cost of petrol could cross 800 litre once the commodity is no longer subsidized. They urge the federal government to ensure that all the necessary measures and infrastructure to ensure a less stressful subsidy removal regime were put in place before implementing the decision. Meanwhile, aviation workers under the aegis of National Union of Air Transport Employees and Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria have suspended the strike, which the unions commenced earlier today. The Deputy General ATSSSAN, France Akijoli, confirmed this to reporters in a phone conversation, added that they've agreed to commence negotiation on the salary issue with the unions. It was gathered that the international flight at Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, were granted as workers of the Nigeria Aviation Handling Company (PLC) embark on the strike. Also gathered that upon the suspension of the strike, some flights were rescheduled at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. Taiwo Alake, Osbc News.
The federal government has reviewed its ban on charcoal export, placed suspension on the exportation of processed wood and other allied products. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora Standing Committee has suspended commercial trade in the African rosewood from Nigeria for authorizing over 180 million of the precious timber to China and Vietnam. The suspension from sites primarily informed the decision of the former Minister of Environment, Dr. Muhammad Abubakar, to place a ban on the export of charcoal and suspension of the export of processed and semi-processed wood in 2018 and 2020 respectively. Dr. Abdullahi disclosed in Abuja that the activities has destroyed the nation's rich biodiversity at yearly hike in forest loss. Similarly, the minister stated that they have put in place a number of stringent measures to stem the current tides and ensure sustainable forest management practices, such as the establishment of the Joint Task Force, National Forestry Trust Fund, and Nigeria Timber Legality, among other measures. According to him, Nigeria has witnessed more deforestation than when the ban was not placed, resulting in loss of forest without commensurate regeneration and its attendant effects, such as loss of wildlife, loss of legitimate jobs and income in the forestry sector, and loss of government revenue. Osun State Governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, has assured investors and the people of the state of the commitment of his administration towards the pursuit of an enabling environment that will thrive for business, and it will make the state more viable, economically buoyant and sustainable. The governor, who stated this while flagging off the Osun Trade Fair 2022, noted that Osun State will key in to the African Continental Free Trade Area, poised to deliver great benefits in terms of job creation, growth, and poverty reduction. Oluchi Amoda has the details of the event held at the IG International Market.
Osun Trade Fair 2022, organized by the Osun State Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce, Industry, Cooperatives and Empowerment, attracted stakeholders in the business world, most especially those in the agric value chain, mining, entrepreneurs, manufacturers, market men and women, top government functionaries led by the head of service, royal fathers, trade unionists, among others, who converged on Ajay International Market to showcase their businesses and network in order to attract investment opportunities locally and internationally. While declaring the trade fair with the theme leveraging an African continental trade area for enhancing SME growth at subnational level open, Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke stated that the trade fair is a major step geared towards fostering investment and business opportunities in the state. The governor, who was represented by the Secretary to the State Government, Honorable Teslim Ibalaye, noted that Osun is a fertile ground for businesses, and the trade fair is a pointer to the fact that the state is ready for business as it has secured environment that makes businesses and investments thrive. The governor maintained that Osun is not just looking for people who will use the state as a base for raw materials, but it is also creating opportunities for value chain addition and development.
This trade fair will no doubt help to showcase the economic potential of the state for the grassroots, particularly in the area of exportable made in Osun products.
In his keynote address, President, National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, Mr. John Idiabala, who was represented by the first deputy president of the group, Otumba Dele Oye, said NASIMA stands for the promotion of trade and investment and encourage the people to patronize made in Osun goods for the growth of the state's economy. In their goodwill messages, Chairman, House Committee on Commerce, Honorable Lateef Jayola, Olojudo of Ido-Osun, Oba Adedapo Aderemi, among others, noted that business is local, hence the need for the development of small and medium-scale industry, which holds the key to the economic growth of the state. In their addresses of welcome, President Osun State Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Osusima, Eldabisi Makonjola, and the Coordinating Director of Ministry of Commerce, Industry, Cooperatives and Empowerment, Mrs. Kehinde Odedinran, maintained that the need for startups and small and medium enterprises to embrace e-commerce for their operations for global competitiveness cannot be overemphasized. They added that government has provided incentives such as a one-stop shop where all regulatory agencies are under one roof for smooth running of businesses in the state.
What we say we are doing, that you say we are producing, we are either producing in the locality or the raw materials we are using is from another locality, and people that are buying from you are from certain locality.
This year event is planned to provide a good platform for exchange of information and business ideas, trade and market opportunities.
The event climaxed with the inspection of various commodities displayed by individuals and organizations at the trade fair by Governor Adeleke. The ongoing trade fair, which commenced on the 18th of January, is expected to end on the 30th of January. Oluchi Amuda, Osbc News.
Those illegally employed by former Governor Mr. Adegboyega Oyetola are no longer in the employment of the state government, and no amount of blackmail can change the reality. This was contained in a statement by the Special Assistant Community Communications to Osun State Governor Mr. Tunde Busari in reaction to the pockets of demonstrations by members of the All Progressives Congress employed towards the tail end of last government. The release noted that Mr. Oyetola deliberately padded the state payroll with APC members to create stage for deeper financial crisis, conflict, and disharmony. According to the statement, those who embarked on the protest were acting the script of the main opposition party in the state. It's added that the administration of Senator Ademola Adeleke would not bow to unjustified demands from those who collaborated to deepen Osun financial woes. In another development, Osun State government says it detests any act of criminality in its entirety by anyone, no matter the name, color, or race. The government therefore condemns the attempt to connect it and the ruling People's Democratic Party in the state with an arrested person being investigated by the police. In a release signed by the Senior Special Assistant to Osun State Governor Oladile Bamiji, the government promised its support to law enforcement agencies to clean up the state of all forms of criminality and make the state a safe abode for law-abiding citizens. The government remarked that it is not unaware of the enormity of potential security challenge posed by remnants of armed groups instituted and nurtured by the past administration in the state, especially towards the July 16, 2022 governorship election, which encouraged arms proliferation across the state. It pointed out that the armed groups, which began and got emboldened with their former recognition by the past administration as state boys, got polarized in the course of frictions within the defeated government and the party, are mere offshoots of that reckless government which the present administration is already collaborating with security operatives to get them disarmed and demobilized from such acts within the ambit of the law and for the good of all and sundry, while condemning the past government support for the dastardly groups. The release explained that it is interesting to note that all individuals being profiled for one crime or the other in Osun State today are graduates of opposition party school of cultism and thuggery. The statement added that it is sad that many of these elements were thrown off the bus by the party after using them for various forms of crimes, especially during election periods, thereby leaving the state at their mercy. About 20 African heads of state and private sector leaders are among around 1,500 delegates meeting in Dakar, Senegal, this week for a high-level discussion on roadmaps for achieving good sovereignty in the continent. The summit is organized by the African Development Bank Group with the theme Feeding Africa, Food Security and Resilience. The three-day meeting under the auspices of the second edition of the Feed Africa Summit Dakar lays out action-driven course leverage on how heads of state will remobilize government resources and leverage development partners and private sector financing to harness Africa's food and agriculture potential and turn advocacy efforts into concrete actions. Another strategic objective of the meeting is developing necessary infrastructure and logistics with special agro-industrial processing zones to build markets and competitive food agriculture. Value chains is at the summit. Private sector actors will commit to the development of critical value chains. It added that the central bank governors and ministers of finance will bear the task of developing financing arrangements. You are welcome to our sports segment. Frank Lampard is expected to be sacked as Everton manager after less than a year in charge. The Toffees, and without a win in their last 10 matches in all competitions, the latest being a 2-0 loss away at the West Ham last Saturday. The decision comes a year and a week after Rafa Benitez's exit. Omotayo Adebodo has the rest of the story and more.
Everton's owner Fahad Moshiri attended his first match since October 2021 as the Toffees succumbed to a 2-0 away defeat to West Ham United, their third consecutive loss in the league. Former Chelsea boss Frank Lampard arrived at Goodison Park in January 2022. Although he helped the club avoid the drop last season, he has picked up 15 points from 20 games and just 3 wins this time, the worst victory record in the division. A run of 10 games without a win for Everton in all competitions leave them 19th in the table, with only Southampton below them on goal difference, while they have also been eliminated from both domestic cup competitions in that time. Just elsewhere, 5th seed Aina Sabalenka reached her first Australian Open quarterfinals with a 7-5-6-2 win over Switzerland Belinda Bencic. Belarusian Sabalenka is yet to drop a set at Melbourne's Park this year, while both she and the 12th seed Bencic were on 7-match unbeaten run coming into the 4th round. Sabalenka, who is 24 years, will next play on seeded Dona Vekic in what will also be the Croatians' first quarterfinals in Melbourne. Omotayo Adebodun, Osbc News.
And now to the foreign scene. The mutilated body of a prominent Cameroonian journalist has been found near the capital Yaoundé 5 days after he was abducted by an unidentified assailant. Taufikat Abdulhakim reports.
Martin Zogo, director of private radio station Amplitude FM, was kidnapped on January 17 as he tried to enter a police station to escape his attackers. Zogo was a presenter of the well-known daily program of Village, had recently been taken on air about a case of alleged embezzlement involving a media outlet with government connections. On the air, the 51-year-old regularly tackled cases of corruption, not hesitating to question important personality by name. According to reports, police in Yaoundé suburb heard a loud noise outside the police station and found Zogo's badly damaged car. Police saw a black vehicle driving off. They later came to realize it was an abduction. Zogo's colleague, Charlie Hamichokmo, confirmed Zogo's abduction and subsequent death, but the police and the government have not commented yet. The incident is the latest in a string of attacks against journalists in Cameroon, which is ruled by President Paul Biya, who has a decade-long record of repressing opposition. Cameroon is one of many countries across the continent, from Burkina Faso to Ethiopia to Equatorial Guinea, where journalists say media freedoms are under threat from authoritarian government. Media advocates describe its disappearance and death as a further sign of the perils of reporting in the African country. Meanwhile, a Palestinian Christian and member of the Lutheran World Federation, before the procession for her ordination as the first female pastor in the Holy Land and the whole city of Jerusalem. Sally Hazar has become the first female Palestinian pastor in the Holy Land after she was ordained in Lutheran church ceremony in Jerusalem. The member of the Lutheran World Federation. The occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip were home to about 47,000 Christians as of 2017, according to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. Most Palestinian Christians belong to denominations that do not allow female clergy. Taufikat Abdullah Hakim, OSBC News.
And that ends the major report on OSBC TV. It was edited by Kayode Adebayo. I am Olubumi Ajiboye Agbola saying good night.